Whether due to not reading the room quite as well as they initially thought they had, or simply getting a little too caught up in the moment, each and every name occupying an undesirable spot on this list would rather you forget these promos ever left their precious mouths. Gareth here from What Culture Wrestling, and here are 10 wrestling promos wrestlers regret. Number 10, Chris Jericho takes things too far in Brazil. Coming in the thick of a 2012 contest against then reigning WWE champion CM Punk in Sao Paulo, Le Champion found himself presented with the opportunity to generate some cheap heat via crumpling and stomping on a Brazilian flag that had somehow made its way into the ring. Upon hearing the inevitable jeers sent Y2J's way, a heelish Jericho then proceeded to pick up a mic and clap back at the incensed paying public in character. "Shut your mouths" were the fateful impromptu promo words that seemed to act as the final nail in the bad judgment call coffin, as Jericho was eventually given the ultimatum of apologizing for his behavior or being arrested by the police. Sure enough, Jericho would chomp down on some humble pie in next to no time, telling the live audience, "I love Brazil. We are very happy to be here to perform for you, so please accept my apology for stepping on the wonderful flag of this wonderful country." That still couldn't save him from a swift 30-day suspension, however. You naughty boy, Chris. Number 9, John Cena backtracks on his part-time comments towards The Rock. John Cena's ill will towards The Rock's decision to turn his back on the wrestling world in favor of Hollywood superstardom ultimately aged like a cup of full-fat milk. A decade or so on from Super Cena's consistent blasting of the Great One's part-time influence, and it's now the face that once ran the place who is only dipping his toe into WWE waters on the few occasions he finds himself away from the Hollywood machine. Go figure. And it appears the shoe now being on the other foot has brought with it some perspective. Speaking to Sports Illustrated's Justin Barrasso a few years back, Cena went on record to admit that his many scathing promos on the People's Champion's lack of WWE appearances were stupid, and he was foolish and ignorant to not see that Rocky was putting his all into showing WWE superstars as so much more than WWE superstars. Finally, Cena sees the error of his ways. Number 8, Excalibur and Kevin Owens quickly realized their promo mistake. In the years before he settled into the AEW commentating booth as the undoubted voice of Tony Khan's vibrant company, Man in the Mask Excalibur was more widely known as one of the founders of much-loved independent wrestling promotion Pro Wrestling Guerrilla, and it was a rather infamous exchange whilst performing under this banner in the early 2000s that would ultimately come back to haunt the play-by-play announcer a few years ago, as a controversial promo involving himself and now WWE star Kevin Owens was unearthed online. Said promo, the re-emergence of which resulted in Excalibur being taken off AEW TV for a spell, saw Excalibur and a then Kevin Steen using racial slurs when asking Super Dragon if he was sure he was comfortable swapping them out with the people in the ring, using racist remarks in referring to said men. Owens would then reiterate one of the slurs towards Human Tornado. As reported by Dave Meltzer, Tornado was known for encouraging the use of race in promos in order to generate more heat, but Owens was said to have still been uncomfortable uttering the words. Both Excalibur and Owens quickly figured out how big a mistake this was and promptly apologized according to Meltzer. Number 7, Drew McIntyre instantly regrets his Raw Talk F-bomb. The likes of Talking Smack and Raw Talk's free-flowing and largely unscripted interactions provided fans with some of the strongest sound bites of the Thunderdome era, which was not saying a lot. However, one star actually found himself getting a little too carried away in the aftermath of that week's edition of Monday Night Raw. Coming during a March 15, 2021 edition of Raw Talk, an overly enthusiastic Drew McIntyre instantly realized what had just tumbled out of his mouth in the midst of a rant about old pal Sheamus, and quickly tried to cover his tracks, in the hopes his boss didn't bother to tune into the Monday night post-mortem. As McIntyre put it would have been simple, just ask me, just bloody ask me. You're my best friend. You want to do that live on Raw, sever our friendship, or that F? The former WWE champion would then desperately confess, "I'm Scottish, I'm so sorry, sometimes I get carried away." A clearly flustered Drew evidently wanted the world to swallow him whole right there and then. Number 6, William Regal apologizes for his All Elite timing issues. From one unfiltered Brit to another now, and to William Regal's highly emotional first official night on the All Elite job earlier this year. Ever the professional and a student of the game though, Regal was quick to scrutinize himself for unfortunately going over his allotted time during the segment involving himself having a natter with Tony Schiavone on Dynamite. Clearly getting a little lost in the heat of the moment and his chance to finally thank Schiavone for helping him in more ways than you can ever imagine, Regal would tweet out his apologies over spending a touch too long in the ring. As the Lord put it, this is a professional note from me as I have no other form of SM, and would rather my new colleagues see this as I don't like gossip. I'm very sorry to everyone affected by my timing issues last night. I apologize to everyone personally affected. I should be showing people by example and being a pro and hitting my times. In reality, next to nobody likely held any grudges against the well-respected veteran taking his time to salute those who undoubtedly helped him along the way. We bloody love you, Regal, so keep up the good work. Number 5, Chuck Palumbo thinks his work with Michelle McCool went too far. The land of sports entertainment is hardly known for its consistent ability to skillfully spin thoughtful stories based on delicate subject matters. So the minute Chuck Palumbo found himself at the center of an angle and numerous promos with Michelle McCool, involving the former WCW man being presented as a wife-beater character, you can see why the star felt his time in the wrestling business was coming to an end. Palumbo's verbal lashings in promos and at times physical abuse towards The Undertaker's wife made for some of the most uncomfortable WWE TV of the late noughties. Sure enough, in the years since the controversial program took place, Palumbo hasn't been shy of declaring how he felt the company simply went too far with the storyline. As the star later claimed, I found that very distasteful, but that's not my choice. Number 4, Chris Jericho regrets calling the Deadman boring. That man, the champion again. And proving that Chris Jericho wasn't in the business of making friends from the get-go, here's that time the eventual undisputed WWE World Heavyweight Champion decided to take aim at the mother of all locker room leaders in what would turn out to be only his second ever WWE promo. Starting off strong, buddy. Branding The Undertaker as boring on the back of an unfortunately long and aimless Deadman speech about taking Big Show to the desert to try to teach him how to be tough and feeding him scorpion meat and drinking water out of a puddle, Jericho would tell the Kurt Angle Show that I was too dumb to realize it, so that got me heat. Right out of the gate, I was just making the wrong decisions. Thankfully, the pair would make amends later down the road, and both now sit back together ranting about how kids these days play too many video games. Number 3, Booker T regrets his infamous Hogan promo. Seemingly making a decent enough living out of dropping highly divisive and controversial takes in recent times, it's hard to imagine any words that have ever left the mouth of 5-time WCW World Heavyweight Champion Booker T, leaving him nursing a bout of uneasy regret. However, there was one particularly infamous promo from said stint under the WCW banner that left even the eventual king of WWE himself wishing he'd done things a little bit differently. As Book would reveal on his own Hall of Fame podcast, the very real botch that resulted in the star dropping an N-bomb in his promo towards Hulk Hogan during his Harlem Heat days is one that, in his words, I wish I could have taken back. As the eventual 2-time WWE Hall of Famer put it, I just felt like I let a lot of people down who looked up to me, and I did not want them to think that was something that was okay, because it might mean the difference for them moving up the ladder at their job, or moving down the ladder or getting fired from their job. It's real talk. I caught myself in the moment, but it's a moment that I wish I could have taken back. Witnessing Book catch himself in the moment still makes for a hard watch to this day, but it absolutely took nothing away from his overall legacy as one of the most important performers of his generation. Number 2, Jon Moxley instantly knew a Roman Reigns line was a mistake. In Jon Moxley, WWE undoubtedly possessed one of the most naturally gifted storytellers of his generation. But once again, instead of allowing a then Dean Ambrose the freedom to cut loose on the mic when called upon, the eventual AEW World Champion was routinely left frustrated by Vince McMahon's consistent need to burden him with dodgy and sometimes deeply uncomfortable material. When faced with having to mock his old Shield brethren Roman Reigns not long after the Big Dog revealed he was set to undergo treatment for leukemia though, a concerned Ambrose did all he could to keep the words from being committed to live television. However, Mox would later recall that after being given the Vince Jedi mind trick, the moment the insensitive words, those being Roman having to answer to the man upstairs for his hell-raising time in the faction, finally left his mouth, he was left thinking, oh my god, I can't believe I just said that. Thankfully, Mox would ultimately draw a line at another controversial scripted utterance targeting Roman, that he deemed so bad that it would have gotten someone fired. Number 1, Cody Rhodes regrets his tone-deaf promo. Few performers today dedicate the sheer amount of time and effort Cody Rhodes does to piecing together all aspects of his American Nightmare package. And it was this fierce commitment to the cause that ultimately left him feeling even more gutted about the way a certain history lesson promo on the May 12, 2021 edition of AEW Dynamite would unfold in the end. During a conversation with Brandon F. Walker on his wrestling show, Cody would admit, "A white guy talking about race relations who has an American flag tattoo on his neck, I can see why people would use the term tone deaf when it came to that." And while he still stood by the content of his controversial verbal setting of the stage for his incoming Double or Nothing battle with Anthony Ogogo, the now WWE man would openly confess, "Every now and then you're gonna come up to the plate and strike out. I overplanned it and struck out, although I stand by it. Not every promo can be a home run, but at least we can still rely on purple-pecked Cody to deliver the in-ring goods, eh? Even with an obliterated tit." And that's our list. Know of any other wrestling promos wrestlers regret? Let us know all about them in the comment section right down below, and do not forget to like, share, and click on that subscribe button while you're at it. If you like this kind of thing, then head on over to whatculture.com and find some more awesome articles just like the one this video you're watching right now is based on too. I have been Gareth from What Culture Wrestling. Thank you as always for clicking on this video today, and I'm sure I'll see your lovely faces very, very soon. Bye bye.